We are only 11 days away from the Switch 2 launch, and there are many unanswered questions I still have about the console. It's these questions I want to talk about in this video. I think my biggest looming question about Switch 2 is the battery life. I know Nintendo has provided a rough estimate of the console's battery life at approximately 2 to 6.5 hours, but this is so vague I'm none the wiser. It's not a very Nintendo thing to do, but I'd like to see 5 to 10 first-party titles played from 100% battery to flat on both the Switch 2 and OG Switch to give us a much better idea of the battery life we can expect from the console. My other concern is the extent to which the console's performance will be held back in order to extend the battery life in handheld mode. I know there are metrics available on the console specification, but they don't tell the full story. For example, what's the difference between playing Mario Kart World at 100 FPS with HDR enabled compared to 60 FPS and using SDR? I hope we get these answers shortly after launch. I don't know about you, but the Wi-Fi capabilities of the OG Switch are pretty garbage. It has very slow game downloads because of this, and has a major impact on online gaming sessions. I've played Mario Kart with friends and had to contend with noticeable lag due to poor network capabilities from the Switch. You'd expect the Switch 2 will surely have a much newer and more capable Wi-Fi chip which is able to communicate at faster speeds with greater reliability. But so far the only detail I can find is the Switch 2 contains a wireless LAN with Wi-Fi 6. This sounds like an upgrade, but to what end? I can't wait to investigate. The Switch 2 is a dedicated gaming device, but that doesn't mean it can't be used for other things. On Switch 1, it's possible to get the YouTube app, but there are notable absences from Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime Video. Nintendo have been behind the times for a while, but with Switch 2 they have the opportunity to catch up to the other platform holders. I think the appeal of being able to take the Switch 2 on a holiday, have access to your games plus TV and movies would be a big plus for the console, and perhaps make life easier for parents along the way. Leave your iPad at home, the Switch 2 can do it all, bitches. As people get hold of their Switch 2 consoles, I'm sure they'll happily be checking out the new Joy-Con 2 controllers featuring HD Rumble 2 and christening the C button for good measure. This is all great news until a friend comes over and wants to play a game with you. You look across the room and spy your Switch 1 Joy-Cons and Pro Controller, and begin to wonder if they'll work with the new console. Prior to making this video, I couldn't answer this, and I'd say I'm a well-informed gamer, but this also concerned me that others probably don't know either. The Nintendo Switch sold over 150 million units, so it's safe to say there will be plenty of gamers with Switch 1 peripherals lying around, but to my knowledge there has been limited clarification on what peripherals are compatible with Switch 2. I'm glad to confirm after an FAQ rummage that it's possible to use official Switch 1 Joy-Cons and Pro Controller on Switch 2, with a caveat. To quote the FAQ, you cannot exit sleep mode on Switch 2 using the home button on Switch 1 controllers. This means you will need to have a Switch 2 Joy-Con to unlock the device before being able to use the Switch 1 controllers. This is great news for many, but it does not provide an answer for third-party accessories, and I think Nintendo could have provided a more public source for this information. Staying on the topic of connectivity, Switch 1 has Bluetooth, and it's pretty dire. I've tried to use Bluetooth to connect some wireless headphones and the delay and quality of connection was bad, so I just decided to use the Switch speakers instead. In the year 2025, I should be able to use Bluetooth devices with a solid connection, so I seriously hope the quality of Bluetooth has been improved. I looked into the Switch 2 specifications and all it says is that it has Bluetooth, so we're just gonna have to cross our fingers and hope that it's a much more up-to-date version. Gamers love to share their accomplishments with friends or on the internet, but let's be honest, the Switch wasn't exactly great for this. It's currently possible to capture screenshots or up to 30-second clips at 720p, but that's the full extent of game capture options. This is understandable given how underpowered the Switch is, but it's another area where Nintendo is miles behind the other platform holders. I'm hoping with Switch 2 the game capture options have been expanded to longer, higher quality clips, along with higher resolution screenshots that accurately reflect the source material compared to the highly compressed offerings of the OG Switch. To my knowledge, there have been no news on gameplay capture or sharing options, so I'm eager to find out as soon as possible. This is perhaps more of a technical curiosity on my part, but I'm interested to know whether it's possible to stream gameplay directly from the Switch 2 console. The Switch 2 has a total of 12GB of RAM, with 3GB being reserved for the OS. This means games have a total of 9GB of usable RAM. To compare, PS5 has a total of 16GB, with 12.5 available for games and 3.5 reserved for the OS. Why does this matter, I hear you ask? The Switch 2 has a significant step up in available RAM for the OS, enabling extra magic to happen in the background while you enjoy your games. This could be better game capture options, enabled for the Switch 2 camera, or even stream from the console. The only one of these that's currently confirmed is using the Switch 2 camera to chat with your friends, but I'm intrigued what else the extra OS RAM could be used for. I'll be honest, when I saw the footage of the Switch 2 camera on the reveal livestream, I was seriously questioning the quality. It's since been clarified by Nintendo that the quality has been bottlenecked in order to reduce the impact on the operating system. This makes sense, but I'm really interested to find out the real-world quality of the camera and the Switch 2 microphone for chatting with friends. Expanding on from this, could the camera and microphone also be used for game capture or for streaming purposes too? I was very impressed by the Switch 2 after the reveal showcase, but one of my biggest disappointments, if you can call it that, was the screen choice. The Switch OLED has a vibrant screen with deep colour palette and great contrast, but it's an OLED panel and not the LCD found in the Switch 2. Those who have been lucky enough to get an early hands-on noted that the Switch 2 screen isn't as impressive as the Switch OLED, even with HDR content, which is perhaps a point of concern. However, those hands-on events haven't exactly been at-home conditions. I think it's pretty clear Nintendo left the door open for a Switch 2 OLED model down the line, but regardless, I'm really interested to see how convincing the HDR content is on Switch 2. It's one of those things you don't think about until it annoys you. I'm of course referring to fan noise. I think it's particularly interesting for the Switch 2 as the hardware is significantly more capable than Switch 1, but has remained in a very similar chassis. Granted, the cooling solution should have been improved, but I'm really interested to see how efficient the internal Switch 2 fan is going to be at cooling the unit, and how loud the fan may get. In a handheld device, you really don't want a loud fan, as you're very close to the device, and you will start to drown out the game audio. This time around, the Switch 2 dock also has a fan, which is pretty cool. Again, I'm really interested to find out if this provides any additional cooling to the device and what the acoustics are like. I'm one of those people who doesn't like to use the Joy-Con controllers. I don't have anything against them, I just much prefer a traditional controller in my hands. I've therefore ordered a Switch 2 Pro controller, but I'll be honest, after finding out I could use a Switch 1 Pro controller while making this video, it got me thinking about how much of an upgrade the version 2 Pro controller will be. The 3 visible enhancements are the new C button, 2 additional programmable back buttons, and a headphone port. These are great additions, but I find myself wondering if the sticks and triggers have been improved, and just how different this new version controller will be to use. Thankfully, we don't have long to wait until Switch 2 launch day, where hopefully some of these questions will be answered. Thank you very much for checking out my video.